Welcome to Evilive, the live media commentary show that answers the question, is Daemon the lone gold cloak now? Subscribe if you're new to the channel because today we are reviewing HBO Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Season 3, Episode 6, Faceless Men. Let me just start by saying this title was a misnomer. I expected those assassins to at least get their knives out of their scabbards before getting their asses handed to them. So they're not exactly faceless or even effective as assassins, but we'll get into that in just a second. A little annoying seeing it, sort of play out that way. All right, so this is it was directed by Loni Perister, written by David Hancock and Shyam Popat, and it aired yesterday, the 26th of July. And sweet hell, we finally got the end for Kristen that I was hoping for. So they're off harrying Tully's soldiers as the Rivermen are trying to get down south to help out Rhaenyra, but they're just being bugged constantly by Kristen's men, which are just way too effective, especially in their small numbers, against this massive army. It made no sense at all. So they end up going to this massive battle scene, and the men were all dead laying around. They're like examining them and kicking some of them over, like, these men didn't die here. And then the men all jumped up because they were faking to be dead and started attacking Kristen's soldiers. But what resulted was Kristen and his men decimating this ambush, completely destroying them all. Just when I was peak frustrated and angry, then came out the rest of the army. So we saw Roderick, we saw Oscar arrive, and Alicent Blackwood even in there with her bow and arrow. And they're all standing, surrounding the entire forces of Kristen's army, which again is not very large at this point. And he's like, I'm ready to die. Two of you want to come down here and face me in single combat? I think that might be fair. And Alicent, without saying a word, just pulled her bow back and loosed arrows, which just sunk into Kristen's gut a few times, then right through his face. And Kristen died. Fuck that dude. I'm so glad that he is finally dead. Not only was he an arrogant prick, he was way too effective in combat based on his life trajectory that we'd seen thus far. And I just hated that character so desperately much. I'm very glad he got the death that he was so fervently fighting for. Fuck that guy. But what this means is now we have the Rivermen and the Northmen all ready to continue down south and help out Rhaenyra. And she, sweet hell, needs the help right now. She is struggling. So we've got Aegon, Larys, and Tylan all trying their best to argue whether they should go over to Essos or whether they should stay here and go to the Lannisters. And ultimately, Aegon says, do you think I'm crazy? And Tylan cannot just say no. And he sort of dances around. He's like, well, everyone has things that, people like about them and they don't really like about them. And that was just sort of Aegon's final straw. He was just like, all right, clearly people think that I'm a privileged prick and I need to work on myself. So let's go to Essos. And he finally makes a declaration. So we know that they are finally going to be off. Now, look, there's only 2 episodes left. I do not expect to watch him go across the sea and arrive in Essos and live a happy life in Essos. We know he's going to be coming back. Not this season, but probably, and maybe not even next season. But he is coming back pretty soon. So whenever he gets to Essos, we know it's going to be temporary. And since we only have 2 episodes left in this season, we're probably not going to see any more of him. At least I don't think we need to see any more. If they really have to show us something, I guess they could show us a quick scene of him boarding a ship. But the whole point of seeing him up until now was to get his character arc to come around and finally realize how other people perceived him so that he could recognize that he needed to work on himself and be a better king if he was ever to challenge for the throne again. So he had to leave. Like, that is the only option right now. And he doesn't have many supporters. As, just evidence. Even the Lannisters, Tylan, who told him that he could stay in their castle and they'd protect him and fight with him, They didn't even respect him. And so he needs to do some work on himself, and justifyingly so. All right, then we get Jane telling Rhaena to leave the Vale after she's caught attempting to see Baela. I don't know how she was caught. All it did was show her looking off into the distance of her sister and her, I guess it's not really a sister, but it's a loose family relative, flying through the sky on their dragons looking for Vhagar. And that was it. And then the next scene, we cut to her being dragged into the airy with by the Jane's guards, and she just goes off and smacks her across the face. What did I tell you? Just talking shit to her the whole time. And Baela, she doesn't realize the power she has right now. She has a fucking dragon. She doesn't have to listen to Jane. She can threaten her. She can stand up. She can demand it. But she's been so cowed and weakened by her life. And she's just telling this sad story about, look, I never had a dragon and I always wanted one. And as soon as I got one, I lost everything else. And Jane's just like, I give a fuck. Get the fuck out of my town. I gave you a chance and you spat in my face by showing your face. Again, don't know how anyone saw it. No one noticed. Don't even know how she got caught, but somehow. And look, it just makes you hate the Aarons in the Vale. Like they're just a bunch of pieces of trash. They don't want to stand up and fight for the crown. They don't want to engage in the Game of Thrones, but they want to have their own place alone and uncontested and not threatened. Well, you don't get it both ways. You either join in the fray or you get the fuck out. Like step up and show some backbone here, people. But in any case, she basically tells her, you need to get the fuck out. Like, no more. We don't want you here. And then we have Alan facing off with Baela and just sort of confronting her. Look, he has lived his whole life without his dad vouching for him on a name. And now his dad finally vouches for him, but the crown won't. He's sort of a bastard son almost. Well, he's literally a bastard son, but he's been treated poorly. And Baela's been treated the same way. She has this sense that she needs to step up for her father and do the work that needs to be done, but she's exhausted doing it. And she can't find Vhagar, and she can't prove herself that she is of someone of significance and worth and value. And that's all she wants. So both of them are constantly trying to impress their fathers and seemingly unable to fully realizing it. And they have this really beautiful moment together, and they end up kissing and stuff. Is this going to be yet another Valerian and Targaryen joining? Probably. All right. I mean, at least it's not incestual. So then we have Alice showing Aemond a hidden clutch of 5 dragon eggs and saying that they can rule Harrenhal together before they end up kissing. And look, who am I to talk about people's looks? I look like a weirdo myself. But Aemond, sweet hell, that jaw could cut through wood. He has this long, pointy jaw that I cannot stop looking at. It looks like a mask. It looks like a cartoon. And look, people have weird faces. I've got weird faces. Well, one weird face. So, you know, I'm in a glass house here. But still, I can't stop looking at his chin and his jaw. It's just too much. And then to see Alice coming on to him, and she's in a position where she needs someone of substance to be the king so that she could then rule by proxy. She is no one of significance in this, hierarchy of the Game of Thrones, and she has to have someone. She's got a Targaryen right here. He is wanted everywhere else. His dragon may have actually left, as she sort of suggests, in order to protect Aemond, which actually does make a little bit of sense. So why not stay here? You've got 5 eggs from Dreamfire from 100 years ago. Maybe you could get them to hatch, maybe not, but at least you have them. They're here. You can start fresh. You don't have to go down south to King's Landing and die for no reason. And at least in the embrace in the moment in the makeout session, it seems like Aemond is open to hearing her pleas. So we'll see where that goes. Of course, only 2 episodes left, and the next one being the penultimate. They usually like to have big, huge, momentous things happening then. I think that might be it might be a battle. So then we see Daemon disguising himself as the King Watchman because all the King Watchmen come and turn in their gold cloaks. Now you got to remember, Daemon created this group in order to have security in King's Landing. But they're getting their asses handed to them by the Hightowers and assassinated, and they need to look out for their own. They're not being paid. They are being actively sought out and killed. There's no reason to continue being gold cloaks at this point. If Daemon really wanted to give a rousing speech to turn the tide, pay the motherfuckers! But he can't because they just don't have money because half of the coffers are missing. So Rhaenyra is really just shit out of luck right here. And Daemon as well. Like, he has nothing to say for it. He tries his best to convince them, but they're just like, no, we choose life, bro. Turn in their cloaks and all walk away. So he dresses up. He's taking on his own shoulders, as he always does. Like, I'm going to find out who these assassins are, and I'm going to fucking destroy them. So he gets jumped by one assassin. He turns it around, and he goes to jab the dude in the ear, and he starts getting information out of him. But ultimately, he refuses to tell him anything. They are fervent in their belief system, and he ends up killing them. And then on his way out, he runs across Hugh, stumbling through... I'm sorry, not Hugh. Ulf, I think it was. Stumbling through the area he's not supposed to be in, because he's supposed to be locked up in King's Landing. And Daemon's like, straight up, you enter the city again. If I see you again, I'm going to take out your fucking eyes, you coward. However, Ulf looked like a peasant. And so from the outside, it looked like a gold cloak beating up a peasant and threatening to take out the peasant's eyes. This just creates the exact dynamic that Daemon is trying to prevent, because ultimately it's the small folk rising up and becoming assassins on behalf of the Hightowers, killing the fucking gold cloaks. And now he's just reinforcing that the gold cloaks are evil and bad by knocking down this seeming peasant, even though this seemingly peasant is actually a dragon rider working for him. So it's just bad optics all around. And as soon as Daemon sees and notices it, he pops smoke to get out of there before there ends up being some sort of uprising against him by the small folk. And he just realizes they're fucked. They have to handle this Hightower situation promptly. Right now, no more fucking around, like, get it done. So Rhaenyra ends up calling, and on Adam's suggestion, calling for Valyrian soldiers. So Adam goes and sees his dad, and he's like, hey, look, we need to get these soldiers, now that you're done rallying up and getting all of the invaders taken care of, we need you to get down here and help us out in King's Landing. We need protection down there. And he's like talking shit and everything, but eventually he plans to do it. So Rhaenyra is telling all the small folk, look, we have security coming. Everything's going to be okay, but they don't want to hear about being okay. They want it to be solved right now, but she can't. She doesn't have money. She's being undermined on every corner by the Hightowers, and she's pretty much just hands up in the air beside herself at this point. She ends up deciding to send assassins to Tumbleton, posing as envoys from House Baratheon, and Ormond is all for receiving them. He wants them. But again, he's got this delicate sensibility, which is so funny as it's presented in the show, where he likes to smell things because he hates the smell of sweat and dirt, and he's like OCD to hell. And he sees the supposed Baratheons coming in covered in dirt and mud and sweat. Of course, they're the assassins. And instantly, Gawain knows them as not being Baratheons because he's done his homework as a good prince should, and he knows the main houses and what they look like and their everything about them, basically. And so he sees them and he knows that it's not them, and he sees they're sort of awkward looking around and saying, you know, we'd like to bend the knee to the King Darren. Where is he? And they're like, he's right here. And then they're like looking back at each other. And that's when Gawain realizes, nope, they're assassins. He pulls out a sword and starts cutting them up. The guards jump in. The assassins don't even get a chance. And they're all just cut down too quickly. And this actually bothers me. Purportedly, these are going to be effective assassins that are hired, right? Like, that's the whole assumption Otherwise, why would you hire them as assassins? They wouldn't be in the trade. But then why are they so easily cut down if they're good assassins? Like, they didn't even have their swords out and they were cut down so quick. It seemed way too simple and way too convenient. They should at least have a little bit of danger in front of them, the Hightowers, so that it does feel like a threat. Of course, then we get to have that wonderful scene where Ormond just pukes from all the blood and death and everything, because, again, he's delicate sensibilities, even though he's a total asshole and ruthless. Just vomits over everything. And we get this really great moment where Gawain comes back from leaving Criston earlier, and Ormond is just talking shit about him. He's talking about him being gay and pleasuring the other men, and telling Daemon, the young prince, that, he needs to go show him to his room, but watch his backside, just talking shit. And then we see Darren. And then we see the dynamic between Darren and Gawain, and it's actually really nice. They're friends, but Gawain can't stop Ormond. Ormond's in charge in this situation, and he can't help Darren, who doesn't want to be here. So he's like, if you get on that throne, you need to step up and just ostracize Ormond. You have to be a man and take control. And I'm going to go take a bath. So he's just totally beside himself. I really feel bad for this poor kid who is just put in this position that he hates to be in. But he's stepping up and he's dealing with the moment, but it is torture for him and no one can help him. He's going to have to find a way out on his own. And then we see Hugh sneaking into Tumbleton to see his wife, Kat. And this is what drives me insane. We see this a lot in a bunch of other shows and situations where a man goes off to improve the life of him and his family, and then he comes back and shit has happened. And so his wife and family ostracize him and don't like him anymore and hate him for doing what he did for them. It seems like it's a trope at this point, and seeing it in this the whole time, she's like, horrible things happened on the road. It takes a long time to walk. He's like, what happened? And she's just, beside herself. She's like, I have to be here with my family. They're in an occupied city. He's like, I'm going to take you away. I'm a knight. I have a dragon. I can take us and fly us home. I can protect you. And she's like, no. And so he's like, no, you're coming with me. You're my wife. And she's like, no. And there's guards standing there looking in. And so he ends up stopping, just like hands in the air, like, we're married. You're supposed to go with me. Why are you doing this? Why are you acting this way? And she just like runs off. And it drives me insane to see this, because he wouldn't have done it without her approval. And then he goes and does it, and then she resents him for it, and then completely cuts him off because of it. Well, which is it? Do you want the husband that improves your life, or do you want the husband that doesn't? Because if you're going to resent him and ostracize him either way, why the fuck would he be your wife or your husband? Why would anyone be your husband if you're going to be a whiny bitch like that? And yeah, that is exactly how it comes off. I completely understand that she suffered because of it, but it was under the understanding that he was going to improve himself in his life, and so he was going to come back and save her and bring her out of poverty and into safety. He goes and does it, and then she hates him for it because she had to go through some horrible shit in the interim. And look, she thought he was dead, and so she has every right to feel the way she does when he suddenly shows up again. But they did love each other, right? They were married, right? Like, she knew he went off to go do what he was going to do, and it turns out he ended up doing it. The first chance he gets, he comes back to her, and she's just going to hate him for it? Come on. I hate this trope that happens like this. Can no one just have a good relationship? Like, at all? I mean, she could tell him what happened. He could help her deal with it, talk through it. He could maybe even avenge her in some way. But to have her just leave him, come on. All right. It just drives me insane. I hate it so much. Then we have Rhaenyra confining Alicent and Helena because they were discovered in the walls. And then, of course, it turns out that Alicent tells Rhaenyra about Helena being pregnant. And we have this great moment between the Mistress of Whispers and Rhaenyra, where she's like, "You didn't know, did you, about the pregnancy?" And she's like, no, I had no idea." She was like prying her, like, did she say anyone knew? Was it a big secret? Seeing if she was going to be in trouble or not for having already known and not told her. But no, she didn't know. Anyway, Helena has a vision and embroiders it, showing her brother Aemond in Harrenhal, and Alicent uses that as a bargaining chip, saying, "Look, I'll tell you where Aemond is. I just found out because Helena has dreams, and sometimes they come true. She's she sees the future and stuff. And he's in Harrenhal. If you go and take care of him, can you please just let us go?" And Rhaenyra's like, "I'll let you go after you take one of my assassins to go see him so he doesn't go run." So we're going to see an attempted assassination with Alicent on Aemon's life. And we're going to see whether Alicent lets it happen, tips him off, or what the fallout is. And I can't wait to see that outcome. It's going to be so good. And of course, it's going to be next episode, the penultimate episode. But anyway, she's like, "You can't have Helena locked up like this. She's going to be sick." She's like, "You give me no choice. I'm trying to be nice to you, and then you guys try to escape. Like, what the hell do you expect me to do? You're the fucking enemy here. I'm keeping you alive when everyone around me is telling me to kill you. I'm trying to help you, and you are doing everything you can to go against me at every single corner. I have to do something here. And that is lock your asses up, stop messing around." And she's right. Like, Alicent, stop being an ass. You're being a shit ass. But again, we'll see the outcome of the whole Harrenhal expedition. And if that works out, then maybe Helena will be able to be released. We shall see. And then, of course, closing this all out, at Alan's request, Corlys ends up sending men to King's Landing, but he ends up being captured by John Roxton, Ormond's lieutenant. And so as he's like sending his men down, the lieutenant comes out, and it just shows you cannot count the High Towers out. The Greens are still in this as much as ever. Like, as shitty as Ormond is, he's actually really good at making these plans, and he's really good at seeing them come to fruition. He's already turned the Gold Cloaks against the city. He's already disbanded them basically after murdering so many of them. He's turning the small folk against Rhaenyra. He's gotten the Valerians out, supposedly out of the battle. I mean, there is a massive army coming down to help, but who knows what the outcome of this season is going to be ultimately. I personally am on Team Black, so I want to see Ormond get his ass handed to him, personally. But we saw when Rhaenyra was on the throne, she cut herself. And we all know what that means. On her dad, when he did it, he started deteriorating and just losing himself and his power. Now Rhaenyra sees the cut, reflects quickly on that reality, and sees that she is now doomed to fail, even though there's a prophecy saying that clearly it's not about her, but they think it's about her, saying that she should be able to rule and rule well. This is the beginning of the end. So what I think we're going to see at these last two episodes, we're going to see partially the outcome of the battle between the Red and the Blacks, and Ormond's going to be suffering in the end. We're probably going to see the fallout between Aemond, Prince Aemond, and then ultimately we're probably going to see another dragon battle. But it's going to leave it in a very precarious position. So next season is going to be mad drama, just, again, battling for the throne, and it's not going to end well. It's going to be so good. I cannot wait. So ultimately, I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 evil eyes. I'm frustrated that it's a narrative thing, and I know it's supposed to be this way, but I just hate that Rhaenyra's constantly on her back feet. I feel like they should have more forces to go in and root out the High Towers and just fuck Ormond up. And for some reason, they're not doing it, and it's just driving me absolutely shit fucking crazy batty. I need to see it. So because of my own frustrations, not because of the show didn't deliver, I'm giving it 4 out of 5s. But I am so invested in this series, and this episode I thought was great. Even though I want more, 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 I cannot wait to see what the next episode is going to bring. So let me know what you guys think. Did you like this episode? Did you also think the name of it, of Faceless Men, was a bit of a letdown? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you enjoy the content I produce, I would like to invite you to become a patron on Patreon or a member of this YouTube channel. Thank you to creative patrons Aaron Hardy and D. Robert Handy, producer patron David Galindo, and developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz. As always, like it or not, evil spelled backwards is live. So get out there and be evil.